He
You know,
does,
he's
man.
got it.
He's a good
I
dude.
think his internal life is something that we should celebrate more often
I
because
think so.
he's quite a thing.
He got to go to, out in the country. We went to Issaquena, and
Oh, good.
he got to stretch out. And, really I love this time of year in the Delta because if you've planted any ryegrass, it's really the only green you'll see for so far.
So beautiful.
And it just stands out. It's unlike a yard. You go through the neighborhoods and somebody's got a little rye or somebody's still got a little green or some weeds growing. But,
Yeah,
man, you get out in
yeah.
the Delta, that's all you see. It's just
That's beautiful.
the rye or the kind of browns. And he ran and ran and ran in that ryegrass like he was a thoroughbred, up
Isn't
there
that
in
fun?
Kentucky.
That's so much fun.
Yeah, it was absolutely a delight.
This has been a wonderful holiday time. My cats, of course, truly believe that they rule the world, and I'm starting to agree with them. But they have a very strange desire to not be exposed suddenly to temperatures lower than 50 degrees.
Oh yeah.
They have gotten very housebound, and I don't know what to make of that.
They love
It's
their
not-
garden mama.
It's not their nature, but here they are, so we're not going to have a bowl for them. Tell you what we are going to have a bowl for, my friends, and that is the bowl to float camellias. I don't know about you, but everywhere I look, there's another camellia just popping into gorgeous bloom. The sasanquas have lasted longer than most people expect, and certainly the several of the shrubby type ones, not the trees necessarily, but the shrubby type ones are still just covered up in flowers, which makes them a beautiful either hedge plant or absolute focal point plant in your flower bed. Maybe you have azaleas and things that bloom in the spring. Well, you need a couple of sasanquas in there in order to keep the interest going all year long. And in a year like this one, when there's so many that have been so beautiful, a friend of mine sent a picture yesterday of something in bloom, wanted to know if she could propagate it, and the answer is yes. We'll talk about that as we go through the season. Right now, we're just enjoying the flowers. But that's a beautiful thing. If you have the opportunity to go to a camellia show or to a display or a sale, you should do that because this is one of the plants that really no one does better than the Deep South. And they are known as the queen of the winter garden because that's, there's not, as you say, there's not a whole lot else going on out there, and the camellias really do bring it home. So I hope everybody's having a chance to celebrate those. I have, I did not inherit a bowl for floating camellias from my mother because I broke it when I was a kid.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I can still see the look on her face when that thing hit the floor, but she forgave me.
I think we could substitute the Flying Horse Hawk Bowl for the 68 Ventures Bowl, if you want to go with that one.
Thank you very much.
Maybe
Thank you very much. That would work.
Yeah, the Bucked Up L.A. Bowl. Yeah, we might get
What is that?
I don't know, yeah. There was so many of them. I'll be honest, I didn't catch really any of the bowl games. I watched a little of Southern Miss's game. I was busy for the state one yesterday.
Sure.
We caught Ole Miss in the quarter, in the finals or in the playoffs, I should say. But what a game! I mean, I don't know if you caught that ball game.
I will confess, I nodded out, left them, and then when I came, I always try to wake back up for the fourth quarter just in case, and I'm so glad I did. That was so exciting.
Man, I mean, that was one for the ages. I don't care if
Really,
you're an
really
Ole Miss
classic.
fan or a Georgia fan.
Classic.
What a great football game.
If you want to learn how to play football, watch that.
Man, that was so much. I really, when we had our running back fumbled and they did the turn it and scoop and score, I was like, all right, that's it. I think all Ole Miss fans kind of felt that way. But
Well, your heart sinks a little bit.
yeah. But what a resilient performance. I mean, by both teams. I mean, Georgia was down, 10 there at the end, and Ole Miss had them.
Yeah, I
and
think so.
They come right back. And
Isn't that
I
crazy?
mean, just what a ball game. Really, really good ball game.
Oh, my goodness. Ken is going to always start us off with a text on our first show of the brand new year with something I don't know the answer to. So for those of you who have just tuned into the Garden Mama show, I will tell you what I know. I've been horticulturing, as they say, for a very long time, but I don't know everything. Nobody does. And here's one. Good morning. Good morning, Ken. I have 6 birds of paradise seeds that I ordered from Amazon. How to take care of them, I don't know.
Sounds exotic.
Right now they're in a cocoa coir bag in the refrigerator, and they've been in there for 3.5 days. I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't think birds of paradise would need a cold treatment since they are tropical plants. That might speed them up. It might not. But if it were me and I had a warm room with some nice bright light, preferably, to start them underneath, I would go ahead and plant them and see what you get. If there's something else that they need, I mean, I can tell you references to go look it up, but I'm probably not going to, and you probably aren't either, because I know you can. You're going to just say, well, let me try this, and it'll probably work. So I'm going to say loose soil, small pot, 1 seed per pot, since these are obviously very valuable. Do them in like a 2-inch or something like that so you can see right away when they sprout. And just keep them damp but not super wet. When we see seedling birds of paradise, they're generally speaking not right next to the plant. So I don't know if, I don't know if they throw their seeds out or if these have been collected by controlling the flower itself. I just don't know. But my suspicion is that they will sprout more readily outside of the refrigerator than in it. Okay? I hope that'll help a little bit. And yes, by the way, your Christmas cactus looks great. I have realized that I don't have a red Christmas cactus anymore. I have apricot and white and pink, but I'm gonna have to go get a red one. Gonna have to do that pretty soon. Speaking of gardening resolutions for the new year, obviously Ken is buying into my theory of start something from seed because it's so much fun, but it's also a good way to get plants you're not necessarily going to get otherwise. But I just hate to say this because I'm so bad at it. If you will calendar what you're doing, it's going to help you every year. I go back and look at the calendars and notes that I made a long time ago, and some of them are still helpful. There's granted temperatures have warmed a little bit, so timing is slightly different. But in terms of what you plant and when, it's always good to know what worked for you. We have lots of good references from extension services and from other people to tell us what's going to work or what might work or what did work for them. But in terms of what happened actually in your own garden, it's a really good idea to go ahead and give yourself the opportunity to write some things down. It might be, it might just be an audio record that you do as you walk through the garden. It could be just pictures that you take that, fall into a frame somewhere that you have a file for to tell you what's going on in that particular part of the garden. Maybe you're a good writer and you'll take a notebook with you and fill out some things. That would be helpful too. But if you can keep up with what you're doing, I know you will find that you don't make the same mistakes twice.
It's funny you were mentioning that. It's how things work in life. I got out yesterday. I was going to go get a tag renewed that has been 7 months expired. I was like, it's a perfect day. There'll be nobody up there. So I go up there to get the tag renewed, and they were closed. So next door is a really nice little bookstore, and they have a lot of for sale older books that are used. And I said, I'm going to go rifle through this while I'm here. And I still had my night pants on. I wasn't in any hurry to do anything on my last true day off, especially after the Rankin County place for the tag was closed. So I started rifling through the books, and I found this beautiful book, and it was a paperback, and it was Hardy Flowering Plants of the South. I was like, I got to have this, So I pull it out, and I start thumbing through it, and it was a used book, and whoever it had clippings and circled stuff and notes
fun.
And calendaring of their plants and how it had done. I'm like, man, this is mine.
I love it.
So,
that's exactly
it's like
what
$1, for the book.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Those kind of notes are irreplaceable.
But it was. I got a kick just reading the person's notes and the clippings.
Sure.
The book was probably 30-something, maybe 40 years old. So it had a bunch of good stuff in there. But
that's fun.
That was one of my suggestions. Hey, go to your local bookstore and find a gardening book and see if you can find. Yeah, somebody may have made you some great notes in there. I got lucky yesterday.
Ken agrees with me. He's probably just going to give it a try.
Yeah, give it a shot. It's the new year, huh?
Yeah, put him under, and he does keep a journal. I had a feeling he did. He's that kind of fascinating person who can manage to do that. Oh, beautiful hellebores blooming today in Madison. That's gorgeous. If you shop for Linton roses, if you shop for hellebores, by all means, this is the time because you can see them in bloom a lot of times when you go to purchase them. there'll be a mix, or there may be individual colors, but usually there's mixed colors, or they'll tell you dark or light because they'll be in the shades of burgundy or they'll be in the shades of pinkish white. So it just depends on what you're looking for. But if you give yourself the opportunity to add hellebores to your garden, I don't think you'll ever be sad about that. They are so beautiful. I have one or two, and I treasure them. They don't grow as fast as I would like, but then a lot of things grow faster than I want them to, so I guess it's a balance somewhere in there. Really pretty shade of pink. I love that. If you are planning to prune figs this year, I have at least one person who was looking for fig cuttings. I don't do this kind of thing too often, but I got to tell you, this person is a very dear gardener friend of mine, and worth any effort that I might need to make. So if you're pruning your figs and you're in the Madison, let's say the Madison area, the metro area there in Jackson, send me an email, mamaonair@yahoo.com, and I will plug you into my friend. Trust me, she can root anything, so she will root them for you and probably give you one back if you want it. It'll be a good trade-off. You'll be glad you did that. Let's see, what else? In the try something new department of garden resolutions, how about try doing things on time? Like pruning figs in January, pruning apples and pears and cherries in January, plums too, for that matter, apricots, peaches, all of those sorts of stone fruits. But it's also important to remember that this is ornamental grass time too. In many areas, the ornamental grasses have gone completely brown, and at that point, it's really very smart to trim them down, make a little a sort of a footstool out of them. Sort of a rounded off on the edges footstool, as close to the ground as you can get within reason. Say, if it's a 4-foot tall grass, try to get it down to about a foot tall. That would be good. And that's a good choice for you to do. It's also time to start seeds. If you are a subscriber to the Garden Mama newsletter, you already know that because I'm preaching about it. And today's SuperTalk.tv photos will include some of my favorites for starting at this time. Nasturtiums and candy tuft, plants that we see in gardens in the summer in other places. It's very difficult in the South to grow these things as summer flowers. We tend to be growing sunflowers and celosia and things that can really take the heat. But right now is a perfect time to start nigella. What a magnificent flower. The seed pods, when it goes from flower to seed, I think it's just as pretty, and there are not a lot of things that are that way. So the nigellas and calendulas and candy tufts are all within your reach at this point. Talking about ways to grow more and more plants, though, I wanted you to be aware, and I hope you will check this out today if you have not seen it. There's a profusion sometimes. You'll cut open a tomato and you'll see little green things sticking out of the inside of it. Well, those are the seeds that have already gone to sprout, which tells you that it's a very old tomato. So you'll get a chance to see that today as well at supertalk.tv. Yes, you can transplant those things. Some folks, though, will literally, because there's maybe 20 seedlings popping up in this one piece of tomato, they'll cut it into pieces and plant those pieces. So there's 5 or 6 or 8 individual little plants, and then of course thin it out to the one that does the best. But if you're looking to maintain the opportunity to keep that particular tomato, and you know that it can do that, it's self-fruitful, then this is a great way to start some. I'm thinking of sun sugar, I'm thinking of cherry tomatoes particularly will do this well. But in some cases, we get good results. I've seen plenty of people get good results from brandywine and other heirlooms that are going to come true from their seeds, but you don't necessarily want to try to save seeds from them. You just let one of the fruits go to completely overripe, and then there you have it. So when you run into those things, that's important too. That's important to realize.
I have a question for you. I went up to Deer Camp, and I told you I had a little science project working in the crisper with the potatoes. They
Yes.
definitely have multiple arms, and they're reaching for the sky now. What would I do if I really wanted to plant those? Could I actually still plant those, or is it probably
it's
too
about
late?
time. February is when we traditionally plant potatoes.
Okay.
So You're actually on time or a little bit sooner. I'm taking it that they have some roots, but they also have shoots.
Yes, roots and shoots.
Okay. Well, in that case, what you want to do is get a container big enough for maybe 3 of those potatoes to sit close to the bottom. Put about 1.5 inches or so of some kind of dirt down in
Okay.
there, or some hay or something, whatever you got handy. Put them in there so that their roots are in that strata, in that material, and then encourage their shoots to go up by filling in on top of that with some more soil. We're trying to get, the idea is that we need that nice long shoot to eventually become the place where the potatoes are on all sides of.
Ah, okay.
So we're going to make sure it stays buried. I think this is an interesting project. We need photos.
Yeah, I should have. I was just kind of in shock that
They were
yeah,
alive.
that they were still doing that. It had been a little while since I've been up there.
I know. I have a cilantro
conditions.
plant that I was sure was dead, and I looked at it yesterday, and it's laying where I had tossed it to put into the compost, but in fact it's sprouting again. I said, "Oh, that's nice. What a surprise!"
I mean, you talk about a potato famine. You're like, how? I mean, these things have been there for. I thought they'd be petrified, but no, they're still growing.
And some years they would be.
Mm-hmm.
It really does depend on the conditions. I certainly have plenty of Irish roots from that era, from the potato famine era in my family.
Well, these are in the refrigerator. So does that help keep? I mean, obviously that's going to keep them.
So it slows things down a little bit. It slows down the degradation.
Gotcha. So, but it'll eventually it will it'll die.
Oh sure.
Okay.
Oh sure. They'll either knock their sprouts off, or they would just get so complex that because they didn't have any soil or any access to water and stuff, they would just dry up.
Gotcha.
So I think you're on time. I like it.
And
You're
if I
gonna
wanted
answer-
to plant some before we go to break, like if I
Sure.
really wanted to get into, I wanted to get some flowers that I know in March and April are going to start popping real well. What do I need to put in the ground? I guess we can talk about that when we get back. But it was something I've been
will.
thinking about lately. Like, what do I need to put in some pots?
I want you to start
Seeds,
some seeds
yeah.
for the candy tuft and the calendula. Those are going to be fun.
Man,
They'll be
okay.
blooming by March.
Fantastic.
Sure.
Thank you.
We've got some good texts coming in this morning. I don't know the answer to this one. As usual, I know some answers. I don't know all of them. I'm here to start a new year. I'm so happy that the Garden Mama show rolls on into January of 2026. I'm so happy you decided to be part of this world. And you know what? My salute is to all the gardeners today. Whatever you're growing, I'm there for you. Stick around. We got things to talk about today. Welcome in. This is the Garden Mama Show, and we are kicking the year off with resolutions, ideas, plans, work for Lance to do, just all sorts of stuff.
I don't know. I haven't done the resolution thing. Is it too late?
No,
Okay.
no. I am reminded of having to learn lots of etiquette when I was a young woman. You always have a certain period of grace for those sorts of things. Whether it's a thank you note or an invitation or whatever it is, you have a little bit of time. Our fig shout-out friend has weighed in on the text line. I love this. She's got a 2-foot tall, and I presume this is going to be a Chinese yew, Y-E-W tree, at the Master Gardener sale. Could I put it in a container that gets morning sun until noon, and the rest of the day will be in shade? Yeah, that should work, because they do prefer a more sheltered environment against late afternoon sun, but morning sun should be fine. That shouldn't be a problem. Let's see now. Oh, I love this question. And if I had planted a question, there couldn't have been a better one for the first Saturday in January. In my bed of daylilies, most are dormant, dried up leaves, but 3 are still green. Why is this? Are some evergreen? The answer is yes. Strangely enough, some are evergreen, some are semi-evergreen. That means to say that they push off their old leaves at the same point that they're putting on the new ones. We're sort of like a live oak tree does. Live oak trees are never completely leafless, but they do change out their leaves over time by the new ones appear and push off the old ones. So that's the same thing that some daylilies do. Some daylilies, they'll go completely dormant, and some are just evergreen, and they are very different in that regard. They don't necessarily perform differently, but they do look different in this time of year. There's a famous suggestion for planting both reblooming daylilies as well as evergreen daylilies in your daylily bed, just so that it doesn't, quite frankly, look like something bad happened to it at some point during the year when everything's lost all of its leaves and nothing is in bloom. So you have a couple of options to go for that. I like that. Talking with Mary on the text line about her cereus. She's got beautiful seed pods. If you grow night blooming cereus, you look in there and there's a capsule, maybe 1.5 or 2 inches long, that is the most beautiful, bright, pinky fuchsia red that you've ever seen. That's the seed pod. And it's not easy to get, not necessarily going to happen all over the plant, but she has a couple of them. So she's obviously had good pollination as well as good conditions for the plant. When they mature, you'll see a little bit of a split on the side of the capsule. And when that happens, you can help it to open up a little bit. The seeds will be real small. They're black. And they sprout in good numbers. It's a wonderful plant. It does take a long time to eventually turn into the night blooming cereus that it came from. I mean, it is that plant, but it takes a long time to grow big enough to be there. I have another suggestion for you, Lance, if you want to start some annuals.
Please, yes.
For this particular, I was thinking about nasturtiums and sweet peas. You really don't have to start them ahead. And particularly if you have an area like the inside of a courtyard or the area outside your clothes dryer, some area that just stays a little bit warmer, maybe the south side of your house because it gets so much sun. Any of those places that are just a slightly warmer microclimate make a real good place to start annuals, and here's how to do it. You get yourself a few pots that are slightly larger than you would think, so a gallon pot rather than a 6-inch pot, or a 2-gallon pot if you only want to do a couple of them. You plant your seeds in those pots, and then you come in on top of it with some hay just for a little while. Pine straw would do well. You're just trying to give it a little bit of insulation. But on the outside, between the pots and the wall that's warm, they take that advantage. You're going to get a little solar off of that. But out from that, that's where hay bales or even pine straw bales come in as a physical barrier that help to slow down the wind, help to slow down the effects of any other weather that's coming along, and give you that better opportunity. When you do that sort of thing, in a few weeks, you're just shocked at how many flowers have come up. So you may want to try that. That little bit of protection. It doesn't take a greenhouse. It doesn't even necessarily take a plastic sheet, although you could certainly do it under that. My concern is that we have so many warm days that if you put the plastic sheet out there on top of seedling pots, you may end up with a greenhouse effect and not have very healthy seedlings. So that's a different way to do it.
I have a little area between the house and the fence. It's about 5 feet, and it's probably about 15 feet. I have a nice couple of benches type things that I put, like pillows and things like that in, but I have them up off the ground, so it's about chest high. Mm-hmm. And it's a great little workstation. But it's also fairly protected, but in the sun. Would that be a good spot?
Yep, that's a good space. You need the sunlight.
And I need to use the space for better, Mm-hmm. Seems like a good place.
We're going to get you started on sweet peas and calendulas and stuff, nasturtiums. You can eat nasturtiums.
Really?
Yeah, people for years, the seed pods, after the flower blooms and it makes a seed pod, that's really a caper substitute because you can pickle them, and they're quite delicious. But we also see. I'm always reminded of my friend, the late flower grower Ed, who said, he sold a whole lot of flowers to fancy restaurants all over the place for flowering and putting them into salads and soups and all that sort of stuff. And he said the best thing to do is to shred them into tiny shears, like you would chiffonade some basil or something, so that nobody knows exactly what they're getting. They may not eat a pansy, but they would eat that pretty purple slip if they knew that it was in their salad. So it's something to think about if you're trying to convince people to eat more flowers or more greens of any sort. We often see those mixed green bowls that have 6 different kinds of greens in them, or we see a green gumbos and stuff, and that's really what that's all about. There's a lot of different flavors in there, so even if you don't like one, you probably like the others. Plant some greens. That's another good thing to do in January. You know what else we're not doing, and we should? Oh, my goodness. You're going to be pruning. And how many people actually sharpen their hand clippers or their tools? Almost nobody.
Yeah, I agree. I'm
Let's
guilty
face
of
it.
that.
Let's face it. This is from the I really don't like to do this department because it's a pain and I have to sit still and those kind of things. But a very soft cloth and a little bit of vegetable oil will clean them. And you clean those blades off, you'd be surprised how much sharper they are once you clean them off. And then for simple sharpening, you would think about using a file, but maybe you don't have a file. Maybe you feel like that's too much. You're going to take the edge off of it or it won't work for you. You want to practice. Get a metal nail file. You'd be surprised how much work you can do with that, and you don't need that on your fingernails anyway unless they're plastic. But there's a really better opportunity to make yourself a finer edge, which makes the pruning go better. Just like sharpening your knives before you cook, if you don't do that, you're really not doing yourself any favors. So sharpen those tools, and I will tell you, I don't have this, but I know it's a good idea. My family always had a bucket that the tools were plunged into sand, and I know that helps to keep them cleaner and helps to keep them sharper. But it just stood at the edge of the garage and was full of sand, and when they got through using the hoe or something, they cleaned it off and then shoved it into the sand to stand there. It's another good use for a 5-gallon bucket, I suppose.
Unlimited uses. That's another good one right there.
There are people who, write entire books about that, so we might get to that one of these days. This is the time really to start seeding those early spring vegetables too. If you're starting seeds indoors, and I hope that you are, you may say to yourself, well, I can get all the broccoli that I need at the farmer's market or the grocery store, or my neighbor's growing it or whatever, don't need to plant that. How about some broccoli rabe? How about something a little bit different? How about a purple cauliflower instead of a white one? How about some wasabi peas instead of just English peas? There's just so many things that you can do if you're willing to start a few seeds that gives you a different opportunity, not only for your plate, but also for your garden. I think I want to encourage you to do that. I also want to encourage you to be just a little crazy when you get to the vegetable racks at the garden centers. Before you know it, you'll be standing there looking at this thinking it's too early for whatever, this or that. But don't miss the chance to get some of these things while they're available. You can grow them on with a slight amount of protection and have them ready for your garden whenever the circumstances allow you to do that. What I'm thinking about is, for example, the early spring plant racks will always have 2 or 3 kinds of basil, and then when those are gone, the only one you see the rest of the year pretty much is the solid green basil, which is pesto basil, which is fine. But I would like a little Thai basil. Might like a little lemon basil. You might have another flavor that you like. You can get some of those in plants. You don't have to start so many seeds, and you can literally grow those in containers until the weather warms up to put them outside. So give yourself an opportunity to extend both the gardening season itself, but also what you're growing by being just a little bit more on top of that situation. I got to tell you that if you've never grown yellow beans, now's the time. So get yourself a package of those too. Everybody says, oh, I don't want to grow green beans. I can buy those at the store. That's right. But yellow beans and horticultural beans, the Shelley beans, those kind of things, those are different. You're not going to find those nearly as many places. And you will enjoy eating them. You'll certainly enjoy growing them too. So do that for yourself. Today is drinking straw day, Lance.
Not the paper one, please.
Well, it can be any one you like. I don't know how to tell you this, but of course the original drinking straws were gold.
Yeah, I like those. Anybody looking to give me a gift?
That's a good one.
Take it. In gold, baby.
They were Sumerian gold tubes, and they were intended for drinking beer.
Oh, wow, even better. I mean, are you kidding me?
3000 BCE. No, I'm not kidding you.
Amazing. You would think we'd start fishing those things out. Some of these tombs.
You would think they would have lasted in all the archaeological situations. I have a feeling they may have been lifted before that. But,
probably so. You had a bunch of 5,000-6,000-year-old drinking straws floating around somewhere. Somebody's like,
later
yeah,
on,
man.
metal straws came along for drinking yerba mate in Argentina, and that's a real specific thing too. The question of single use, of course, is always the big deal for all of us. Is how much How much of that how much paper can you use? How much
Yeah.
can you recycle? How much can you put together? And quite frankly, aren't they more expensive every year? I mean, you hear about all sorts of things that people are not like. For instance, you don't see as nearly as many fancy drop-ins and king cakes. Now they're all going to the plastic babies rather than some of the fancy ones because it's too expensive. The king cake would end up costing you, more than your celebration would be worth. I think that's true in some cases of these fancy drinking straws too. But today is the day that we do celebrate bendable straws from the 1930s.
I love those.
I love those. That we have to thank Joseph Friedman for that. But before that, we have Mr. Marvin Stone, who invented the originally paper straw in the first place and patented it. Do you know why he did that?
Mm-mm.
Because before that, we were using the stems of rye as straws, and apparently not everyone likes the taste.
Like you're getting a good bourbon shot or something, maybe.
The whole grassy, woodsy kind of thing was just not as appealing. So, and of course, that's how come we can, bendable straws are a big innovation. That's been very helpful in terms of when people are sick or something.
Well, and you can make a lot of fun things out of them, too.
Yes,
like
you
craft
can.
time is excellent
Yes,
when
you
you have
can.
a bag of those you haven't used, multicolored ones.
It's a wonderful, wonderful fill. Oh, how pretty. Beautiful, beautiful. There's a pond in Arkansas that we're getting to see beech tree reflections from our cross the state line folks. They go back and
Oh,
forth. They
wow,
live in
that's
both
beautiful,
places.
isn't
Isn't
it?
that beautiful?
You can see everything on the bottom of the water just like it was crystal clear.
Just beautiful. Gorgeous, gorgeous. And on the other hand, a stray cat we decided to keep is sleeping in our window boxes and knocking over the pansies.
You got to figure it out. Yeah, you can stick around, but you can't do that.
Oh, dear, dear, dear. Well, there's a few things you can do to discourage them. If the cat does this while you're physically present, a water pistol is the most effective thing that I have found.
Don't give them temptations. Those kitty temptation things. I gave Sunshine.
You can lead them across
Oh,
the
my
yard
God.
with them.
Sunshine has not left my side in 5 days. Since Christmas Day, I gave him that, and I let Butterscotch have other things. And so, yeah, Sunshine went
It's a
through
big
them.
one. It's a big one.
Went through them in a few days.
I do have one cat that demands her treats.
He is addicted to those kitty
Yeah.
temptations now. I mean,
Yeah.
he's just harassing me all
Well, Temptations did that intentionally. You know,
They
they want to
did.
stay in business a long time.
I'm giving him a shout out. Those things are
So
gold for a cat.
they're definitely far and above everybody else's. Or true. Oh, good. We got some more good news coming in on the text line and some more ideas for you. Get this January started off right. Get yourself going. Get your workload up and also make it a little bit easier. Stick around. This is the Garden Mama Show. Yeah, we don't even get any protests from the pork population for that. You know, one of the things that we do need to think about, my friends, seeds are not in as short a supply as they were, but if there's a tomato that you want to try, this is the time to order those seeds. I'm thinking particularly of things like sun sugar and the other oddballs that you may or may not have grown before, but that you've eaten and enjoyed. If you like, for example, the mixed colors of cherry tomatoes or grape tomatoes, there's several different ones you can grow. They won't be multicolored on one plant, but you can grow mixes of those and get several different colors in maybe 2 or 3 plants.
That was a question I wanted to have. That's why I wanted to play that. Is if we're thinking tomatoes, as we usually are on this show.
Generally speaking.
Yeah. So I've never done the seed route. I wanted to try that this year. So what is the trick? Like what down here in our zone around central Mississippi, I'm wanting to get seeds and plant tomatoes and not do it like I have in the past, buying them already kind of built. What is the trick? What do I do?
Starting in January is really the key. Maybe not this week, but within a few weeks. What you're trying to do is create a plant from seed that has at least 3 sets of leaves on it. In other words, it pops up, it has those little seed leaves, and then it has real leaves, and then it has another set of real leaves. You need at least those 2 sets of real leaves and the seed leaves for it to be viable to transplant. So in my opinion, my experience. So I'm going to say that usually takes 6 to 8 weeks. Since we're going to presume that March the 15th is going to be warm enough for you to plant anything outside, then we need to back up 8 weeks to the middle of January for you to start those seeds.
Okay.
That is usually the problem, that most people don't have trouble getting tomatoes to come up or to grow. They have trouble getting them not to stretch because we don't put them under enough light. They need to have the light very close to them, or our timing is off, and so we end up trying to plant small tomato plants in April or May. And then we wonder why they don't ever make fruit, or why they get eaten by bugs before they can. So different things happen. But if you go ahead and start in January, peppers too, actually, you're not going to plant the peppers until a little bit later in March, but they take a little bit longer to get to a viable plant. So if you start yourself in mid-January, I think you'll be surprised at what all you're able to grow.
Well, thank you. That's what I
What
needed to hear.
kind do you want? Large, red, big, yellow? What kind of tomatoes are you trying
I'd like
to
a
grow?
variety this year, actually. I've kind of gone with what some of the stores have had as far as the bigger ones. It look like they're easier and, and
Well,
less
let me
effort for
disabuse
me.
you of that. The easiest ones to grow are cherry tomatoes. They have the fewest pest problems, the fewest. Well, they're just the easiest. They're vigorous, they're fast, and they when you get past that, the ones that are harder to grow, frankly, are things like Romas. The ones that you want to grow for tomato paste. That's a harder tomato to grow, in my opinion.
Okay.
So the
Stick to the cherry tomatoes then, which I love eating.
Stick to them for now, or grape tomatoes. Those are a little bit easier. And then go ahead and pick yourself one. Pick a nice, I don't know, pick a celebrity, or pick a ripe. I wouldn't grow that. You can get that from a plant. But pick yourself another. I'll send you 2 or 3 names. You might want to grow a nice big red tomato, and at least start those seeds, and then I can get some plants from you. So it'll be great.
That would be amazing. Yes, let's go that route.
Good morning. Happy New Year to our texter. I have an ornamental magnolia that's growing up against the brick and crowding the front door. When is a good time to prune? Oh, I'm so sorry that you have to prune it, but winter is going to be the best time. And if you have to prune on one side, please remember that you got to prune on the other side. In other words, it's leaning against the door. You may be able to cut one branch and solve the problem, but if you have to do more than that, be sure you balance what you do on both sides or all the way around the tree. What a nice thing to have by the door, though. That's kind of pleasant. I have another idea for the folks that are having trouble with the cat climbing into their flower boxes. There are a few things that you can actually do. There are some repellent products that are basically red pepper or black pepper, and you sprinkle that on there, and they don't like the smell of it, so they will oftentimes avoid it. And the other possibility is just simply to cover them up until the cats are bored with it and move on to something else. If you're growing in a container that's a couple of feet long, you can take a box and put on top of it that's clear. You'll have a little greenhouse there, but it'll keep the cats out. And really, it is a matter of basically them finding someplace else to hang out. If you are feeding them, feed them away from the plants that you don't want them to sleep on. Give them a nest someplace else.
And I can say, if you want them to go run a possum.
Well, there's that.
Yeah, rent a raccoon or a possum.
Yeah,
I guarantee
that'll help. That'll help a lot.
Man, mine are absolutely. They can't. This time of year, I guess they can just see everything so much better. But they're absolutely on point, man. Even if they're inside, they're watching everything.
Well, and quite frankly, they're not as interested in football as we are, so they're looking for something.
That is a good point.
to be amusing.
I do think Sunshine was excited for the Rebels, but he didn't watch much of it.
Well,
he just heard us.
It doesn't take much. That's right. It doesn't take much. On a recent show, you suggested putting a wind barrier around the garden, which I did, and it worked. Yay, congratulations. This is where the potted hellebores are that she just showed us the picture of, or he has just showed us the picture of. Would this be a suitable microclimate to start seeds? Yes. And when not in bloom, the hellebores do have nice leaves all year long. They do, in fact, have lovely leaves, and they may make it all the way through the summer. They're a beautiful plant. So I agree with that. Absolutely. Good idea. Oh, I want to plant a fruit orchard in Oxford, Mississippi. Thank you for that.
Yes, I was loving it.
It's really important. Really important. Planting figs, pears, blueberries, blackberries. What are other things that I should plant that would do well in my area? Really depends on what you want to eat and how much work you're willing to do. When you start with figs and blueberries, they're delicious, and you don't have to do a great deal of work to them compared to things like plums or apples. Now, you can grow some beautiful apples in Oxford, but it is going to take more work than the figs will take or the blueberries will take. Blackberries as well. Be sure you get, I shouldn't say be sure, I would suggest thornless blackberries because, frankly, they're easier to grow. The fruit are bigger, and they're developed, most of them, across the South. They're beautiful, particularly the programs over in Arkansas that are things like Arapahoe is an old one, but there are more modern hybrids that are from that program that are just really, really good. You'll find them at your garden centers. Everybody grows them. Pears, if you want to grow a pear, I'm going to say grow a kefir or grow some other kind of pear that's intended for either cooking only or cooking as well as fresh eating, just because it's an easier tree to grow. Those would be my suggestions.
What is the
on your way.
Start to producing pears? And it's like my mama had the green apple. I don't remember which one it was, but it was used for pies and those things. Mm-hmm. It was
probably Granny Smith.
Yeah, I think it was a Granny Smith, but it was about 10 or 12 feet tall, pretty squatty, but put out a ton. Same with the figs; they were more of a tree almost. That very, very thick. 3 of those, if I remember, more figs than you could ever imagine. But how do you? I know she had a couple of other fruit trees. What is the start to producing time? Obviously I know it's depending on zones, but
it really depends on the age of the tree when you plant it. Most of the, say, in a 2-gallon container that you would get a fruit tree, it's going to be 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
Figs will be a little sooner. Blueberries are a lot sooner. They're shrubs, but something like a pear tree or a cherry tree or a plum tree, you're going to be growing it for 3 to 5 years.
So if you're looking at it as an investment also, say you're wanting to say, you're looking at time frame there. Okay.
Absolutely.
Perfect. That's why I was.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
That's why we can plan now in 2 years to go and visit in Oxford and see this beautiful orchard.
We'll be there.
That's right. That's right. Oh my goodness. We have blown through an hour. This year is going to go fast, y'all.
I guess
Stick around. This is 2026. You're on SuperTalk and we're right here. And by the way, you can rent a fruitcake at this event if you need one to participate.
You could probably rent one from the 50s. Yeah, they're still around.
Wouldn't you think? It raises money for local food pantries. And why
nice,
not? What a great thing. That's
well, I guess
hilarious.
that's stuff that
you got to find something to do.
You got to find something right. That and you end up having a good cause, and as a result too.
Let's face it. As the world moves forward and we all try to find better ways to support the causes and the nonprofits that we want, we do need some different activities, and here's one, Yeah. So it's fruitcake toss.
Have you ever eaten fruitcake?
Just the other night, yes, I did.
Did you? Okay. I've never really eaten it to know if it's any good or not. It just looks so imposing.
Well,
and when it was wrapped in tin foil,
one of my relatives is a large foodie,
Okay.
he does all these, he's fancy, and I appreciate being the recipient of his largesse, and his fruitcake was delicious. It did not taste like the fruitcake of my childhood. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is for sure.
Yeah, I just remember some of them getting unwrapped from tinfoil in an ice box.
Oh yeah. We attempted in my years as a bartender, we attempted to soak them in any number of alcohols to improve their taste, and also so they wouldn't be so dry. Because fruitcake gets real dry real quick. So
yeah, soak it in a good dark rum.
All of that. So. It was a Bailey's Irish Cream fruitcake nugget. Anyway.
Used to make our own Baileys, too. That was always good. Because, the recipe's not very difficult. There's 5 or 6 different things. But, you're talking about... And again, Bailey's is great.
Well, that's what you're doing. You're now in order to... You have to do that. And
I got my book
winter,
still. Yeah.
Next winter, we'll put a Garden Mama label on it and give it away.
I'm telling you, it's great. We could do that. It would be a wonderful treat.
It'll be fun. Amanda in Pike County has a great question. She's ready to plant some green onions that she's been storing in the refrigerator. Can she do that? I said absolutely. Wrote her a note back and said, but do keep a container nearby. Just in case the weather goes sideways, you can just cover them up for a night or two when you need to. But there's not any reason why you shouldn't. They prefer the cool weather to waiting another month or two to get out into the soil, I think. Another Happy New Year wish. Kathy in Vaughn is right up there with you and your tomatoes. When can I plant zinnia seeds? Okay. She says she waited until May before. May is good. You can sow in May, but you can also sow in March or April, particularly if you're growing the taller varieties, you may want that extra time of starting them sooner. On the other hand, if you're just trying to grow basket-sized zinnias, they're almost as quick as radishes. So you may want to wait and plant those a little bit later.
I grew the giant ones one year, many years ago, 8 to 10 years ago, and I just bought them in a little seed pack. They were pink, and I've never been able to achieve what I was able to do with that. And basically, I just did a very light potting soil around the mailbox, and they grew up around it very nicely. But they got to be about 6 feet tall, and I would kind of have to cinch them down to the mailbox. But I still have pictures from them that they were just so beautiful. I didn't do anything different, or I probably did less than what I've tried to do with other versions. Is there something I'm looking for?
You have literally defined zinnia growing.
Okay, good. Well, I just got lucky, I guess.
Well, it is a matter oftentimes of benign neglect. You set it up appropriately. They were in the right place. They were a good, viable seed. They had sunshine. They had water. After that, they go. They will grow, and it's particularly important for us to recognize that, because we do sometimes try to do. I've seen people, I should say, try to do things like stake them and keep them from having leaf diseases and all that other stuff. Just plant another zinnia. Okay, spread them a little further apart and plant a different variety.
It was the greatest treat watching the mail lady as they grow. I thought they'd be about waist high at most, and once they got above the mailbox and started kind of leaning toward the road, and I kind of had them cinched up. But I told her every time she came by, just get one.
That's right.
It's in your way. Just cut one. And but they were beautiful. I have the best pictures I've ever taken of any flowers I've grown. They were just so complex as far as perfect with the leaf, the density, the stalks, everything, outside of just being a little too tall. But man, I've never been able to get back to that, and it disappoints me every year. I tried, it just doesn't happen.
You're improving the soil too much.
Okay.
You're probably planting them a little too carefully. In other words, they would rather just be scattered and then pressed into the soil. That they don't need a whole lot of attention. They don't need to be buried. And sometimes that's to your deficit in getting them to come out.
I think everything you just said is what the first time I was like, I'm just going to try it out.
Yeah.
And really had no idea what I was doing.
This is the truth. There was a fellow at one time who had serious desire to impress me. And bless his heart, he's a wonderful person. I'm glad he, went on with his life. Delightful guy. He sowed sunflowers like that across my backyard, just flung them out there.
Yeah.
And they were everywhere, and they were in my way, and I couldn't mow the grass, and it was not too happy at the time, but he sure did have success.
Well, that's a great point. I have a very large field, not like a field where you would plant soybeans and take them to harvest or anything, in the middle of Issaquah County, and it's probably about 20 acres, and I have gotten permission this year that we're going to plant that whole field with sunflowers.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited about it. It's something I've been trying to do for a few years. And I believe I've put enough lead time into it. When do I need to be prepping my soil, which it's a 20-acre field?
Pretty soon.
Yeah. So, and then we kind of wanted to have it ready for dove season next year as well.
You kind of have to look towards what the weather pattern is in an area like that. Mm-hmm. Because you don't want to plant when they're likely to come up and immediately be, killed by freeze or overwhelmed.
Well, and we
by
have
water.
to worry about water. Yeah, the flooding opportunity that comes in about 2 months.
So I was going to say, so generally speaking, that's going to put you towards the end of spring.
Okay.
But if you can do any kind of, for instance, if you plan to do something that's going to keep the water from being exactly on top of your flowers, you might dig that ditch now.
We got plenty of them around. They just fill up.
Well, but you know what I'm saying? Anything like that you want to do to remediate the situation. But otherwise, I think you're looking for that soil to be nice and moist. And in a couple of months, maybe 8 weeks from now, mid-March, maybe a little later, depending on how the flood season goes. But that's really where you get to take advantage of the soil that's there and the conditions that are there and put them to work for you rather than fighting them.
That's a good point with the flood. I always think, I got to wait till that happens, mainly with anything that I want to do. So that is somewhat limiting. But the other side of that, the great benefit is you get a lot of great fish to eat after the flood.
Sure,
all
sure.
those bayous fill
and
back
sunflowers will grow all the way to frost next year.
That's what we were, I hope that was kind of the point. And then to have habitat for deer as well to eat during the winter. As how long will those stalks and those heads, once chopped or laid down, if we're not doing it for harvest, but for wildlife, how long will they lay and not spoil?
That would depend on your visitors and how fast they eat it.
I think they'll eat it really fast once we do this one.
The visitors will sometimes set that table for you. You don't get a chance to do that. But I will tell you what else now. This is going to be, when you grow a field of sunflowers, especially where in Esquina where you're talking about. I mean, I'm happy to say that I have been in these fields. Not your fields, but other fields up that way where sunflowers.
Well, you're going to go to this one, yeah. Once
sunflowers just do beautifully. That's the place for the photograph of, I don't know, your nephew in his prom suit. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Those are the pictures that you will never see again, and they are spectacular. So prepare yourself.
Oh, I'm so excited.
You're going to be, you're going to be the dude.
I'm going to feel like Mama and Papa. They were farmers, and then moved down to McGee when Papa got tuberculosis and had the I would say the small, probably a little quarter-acre plot there close to the railroad track.
You have
but
any
they grew
idea
everything.
how much a quarter acre is to keep up with?
Buddy, we ate forever. I mean, the black-eyed peas and green beans and butter beans and corn and everything that they grew, okra. But it was amazing how much yield would come out of such a tight area, but well maintained.
Well, and when you have a space that you can see to all of it, in a day or two, it helps a lot. You get into that rhythm with it, and it's not as frustrating. What people will tell you sometimes, tell me anyway, is that they just couldn't do it anymore. They just couldn't get out there and couldn't do that anymore. And so the weeds grew up, and then the next thing you know, it's kind of like that gardener's brain thing that I sent you. Do I need this? Do I need that? Do I have too much of this? Do I have too much of that? Well, sometimes all of that is true, and you still just keep gardening. But sometimes it will run you out of the garden, and people get so frustrated. So I understand that. I've been there myself on a couple of occasions. But I got to tell you, when you just keep on putting one foot in front of the other, those 2 rows, that quarter acre, those 6 pots, you can end up growing a lot more than you think you will. And that's fun.
It always blew me away, honestly, to see how much in the vegetables. It had the old, it looked like a Studebaker hood of a truck, but it was an ice box. It looks like it was straight off an aircraft. But that thing would be stacked full.
Sure.
And she'd give away blocks. She had it, she had it down to the measuring of everything was just about the perfect size to hand to somebody on the way out the door.
And if you're a first timer, you end up with, frankly, your neighbors walk the other direction when you show up with the zucchini. I mean, they will turn and go. Everyone's had fritters already. Bubba in Starkville says he lost 5 acres of sunflowers in less than a week. Let's go with hot wire.
Yeah.
So you have to put you a baffle.
I don't know, man. That's going to be a lot. Be a lot of land. We've grown them in other areas, not here, and there is a sizable deer herd that I will be feeding somewhat through the winter as well.
We would like to persuade them that sunflowers are not their thing.
We want to let them know that this is for later, not now.
That's right.
We've got to wait. Patience is a virtue.
We will see. We will see. Good point, though, Bubba. You do have to worry about these things.
Thank you, Bubba.
My early encounters with people trying to avoid deer coming in to eat their gardens and stuff, there were always the motion-activated noise machines and lights and all those kind of things. And I really don't believe the deer were ever dissuaded if they were either hungry enough or in the browse or something. They're just going to be where they are. So we do have to kind of insulate our gardens from that. He's absolutely right.
Would you, and that gives me a thought, is there something you could plant encircling it that may offer a buffer?
There are people trying that all the time.
Yeah.
People trying that all the time. There are people who will put, for example, most deer don't care for and won't selectively eat things like Powys Castle Artemisia, which is a gray-leafed plant about 2 feet tall, maybe 18 inches tall, and people will plant that around their entire perimeter of something. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Always remember the deer can jump 5 feet straight up in the air. So
Yeah, like my dog, exactly. They look just like my dog.
you have to be aware that you may or may not dissuade them at that point. Well, in addition to the great fruitcake toss today, the sun is at perihelion. Does that give you any thrill? It tickles me because I love remembering when I first found out that the orbit was elliptical, and we had to learn to spell elliptical because it was such a great word. It means football shaped. Come on now, we all know what that means. But perihelion, of course, peri is close and helion is sun. This is the day of the year. It usually happens a couple of weeks after the solstice that we end up with our Earth as close to the sun as it gets. Pretty fun. This is winter in the northern hemisphere, and of course summer because of the tilt of the axis in the southern hemisphere. This is where you get to teach everybody that our orbit is not circular. In fact, very few of them are circular.
Well, and all the bathing suits that nobody bought last year, are they getting sold now in the southern hemisphere, or are they rolling out the new stuff?
Both.
Okay.
Both. If you go to the tourist spots, you can find upscale, and you can also find last year's version. Guess what? They're all bathing suits.
The same thing.
Pretty much the same. Pretty much the same. How far do you suppose the Earth is from the sun at perihelion? This is one of those things they used to put into commercials. 91 million miles away.
I was going to say like 100 million, so I was way
Almost.
off. Yeah,
and it's actually about 95 million when we're at the aphelion, the furthest away from the sun, farthest point. That happens in July. That's a different
Look
thing
here at Mr. Jeff in Grenada. This is the kind of salt that I need for my wound.
Now see,
yeah, that's
this
good
is
stuff.
Exactly right. And he's right about things that blow in the wind. Here's what Jeff tells us. He's had a 2-acre dove field of sunflowers for 3 years now. Thank you. Yes, thank you. 25-pound test fishing line, 3 feet high, all the way around, and then tied Walmart in this case, but I'm sure that Dollar General wouldn't mind.
Yeah, whoever your
NIL
theirs. Sponsor is, use those.
Plastic bags every 6 feet to blow in the wind. That motion really does make a difference.
2 years he did it too, and it didn't. I mean, that he didn't do it. He said it was a total loss.
Yeah.
So great idea, man. That's what I'm looking.
I love this.
I don't want to waste money.
Idea. Carroll County, I love it. I love it. I love it. The other thing is that when we talk about this whole business of distraction for the deer, it is very important, and it does work. But it reminds me of the lady in Yazoo City that I went to speak to a garden club group a long time ago, a minute ago, and she said that she had solved the deer problem by taking white cloths that were basically the old kind of baby diaper cloth that was that real thin.
Oh yeah.
Stuff
Kind of like
muslin.
a cheesecloth.
Yeah, almost
Similar,
a cheesecloth muslin kind of thing, and dipping it in bleach and hanging it all around her garden, and the deer wouldn't cross it. And I remember thinking, well, it's probably the wind that they won't cross, and then the smell of the bleach. But I don't want that in my garden.
Ooh, yeah, that's fun.
Now, I can take the plastic bags every 3 feet out in the field. That makes sense to me. But
well, I got plenty of 25-pound and so test line in different colors, forms, and laying around in every corner of everything I own. So I think I might get around 20 acres with that.
We got to get you a GoPro camera.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because I want to see this.
Yeah,
I don't want to be there, but I want to see.
Yeah, you come out there and help me run the line around 20 acres, huh?
Not even.
Reminds me when we had the dog kennel.
I'll be amazed.
We had the dog kennel lit up like we had the previous texter Bubba talking about hot wire. Well, I had that experience with a dog kennel because we had a climber, had a beagle that loved to climb.
Isn't that something? Yeah. There are some that are just indefatigable. I mean, they don't care what's on the other side.
No, they just want to get on the other side. She wouldn't have gone anywhere.
Today is the festival of sleep. I don't think any of us are paying attention to that.
I think the end of mine. Yeah, I just did that for a week.
I know that it's necessary. I know that sleep is very important, and I certainly appreciate mine. But I don't know if we need to have a festival. We have that many insomniacs or that many people that just like to sleep? I don't know. Well, it's something to think about. I'm going to talk a little bit about what else is going on in the seeding world. I want to give you some tips about that. I've also got some ideas for you about that fruit you're going to plant this month. So stick around, please. And, oh, by the way, this is Booker T. Welcome in. We hope that your garden's going to really rock this year, and I'm confident that if you need help, you're going to get in touch with me. Garden Mama, mamaonair@yahoo.com. Y'all have been so sweet about the coffee. We are roasting, we are selling, we are sending, we are shipping, we're carrying. Y'all have just been great. And so trust me, there's plenty of coffee to come in the new year. It's been good. I've enjoyed it, and I'm glad that you have too. Y'all have been so sweet to tell me so. That really makes me very happy.
Well, it's delicious, so, you know.
Thank you, sir.
You need to know that all the time. I mean, you're sitting there roasting it and doing it and packaging and making it. Sometimes it gets, well, you can't see the forest because of the trees, but yeah, it's amazing. True. Yeah, thank you.
Well, and the blends that our folks here do are each one that I've tasted has just been very distinct and very specific. I invite y'all, if you know our friend, even if you don't know our friend Gary Bachman, the horticulturist, and the one and only Gary Bachman, Gary grows in Ocean Springs. He has a 1930s coffee pot that he has made my coffee in. And it is a beautiful glass extravaganza of a coffee pot. So check him out on YouTube. That was real sweet of him, and he likes it. So I mean, you know, he's got better taste than me, I think. So
hey, it tastes great in a French press. I can promise you that. It tastes
really good any way we've done it. Garden Mama, we got a Nandina that was planted many years ago. Yeah, weren't they all? It was shaped like a lollipop. Can I cut that thing down to about 6 inches above the ground and have it come back? Yes, as long as you've got canes on an old Nandina that are above ground 4 or 5, 6 inches, that look healthy, that are not all dried up, you should have plenty of new growth to come from that clump. That shouldn't be a problem. But interesting, huh? That's funny. This is the house in Vaughan. Oh, want to prune these things in half. They're 8 to 10 feet high. Holly and camellias. What are your thoughts from Greg? Greg, my thoughts are you're going to need a whole lot of cover. You're going to need your arms covered, your hands covered, your head covered, most of your body covered, because between the holly and the camellia, they're going to slap you really badly when you go to cut them. Make sure that your berries are finished. Make sure that your flowers are finished, if there are any on either one of these. And then, yes, you can cut it back by as much as half in 1 year, usually without damaging it. I'm not going to say that 100% you might not lose a piece of this big old shrub, but most of the time we can cut them back by as much as half when necessary. Do it all over, do it a little at the time, and well, I would like to say don't use a chainsaw, but you probably are going to use a chainsaw, so just be careful. Okay, just be careful. Thank you so much for your kind words. We're talking about methyl plums for pollinating, and most people will grow Santa Rosa with that, but if you've got another suggestion for our grower in Oxford, by all means, let me know. We'll pass that along.
It's so funny that you don't hear as much about plum, and it's probably my favorite to eat. I don't know about you.
Love plums.
When they're ripe, man, they're delicious.
I like old-fashioned green gage. Ooh. When I run into those green plums at a farmer's market or somewhere, or, you know, somebody gives me a bag of them, that's the best thing in the world.
Oh, they're so good.
So delicious.
I love peaches and all that, but there's something about a plum with the flavor. And then I've made a bunch of syrups out of them over the years.
Yeah, plum makes a great syrup.
It's just such a delicious fruit.
It really does.
Underrated, in my opinion.
I agree. I think it's because so many places grew so many of them for a long time that we sort of started to take it for granted. It's not as hard to grow as apples, for example, but it is still a little bit more complicated. You got to spray for some bugs usually, and that in turn gives people a caution. They may not want to do that, but it's well worth it. Well worth it. This is a good one. The jasmine and the verbena are blooming. Let's see, where are you? Oh, in Clinton. Well, it happens. They're confused as to what day it is. Happy New Year. Thank you very much, Sandy. Appreciate you. Yeah, it's things come and go, and we do sometimes end up with some damage, but most of the time a plant like this that has been on that fence and no doubt blooming off and on for years You might get a crisp edge if the weather turns really foul, but it's not going to set that thing back. It's a really beautiful plant. Just a lovely, lovely plant. I like that. I'm talking about apples to plant in Oxford. I'm very happy about Arkansas Black. I hope y'all know that one and hope you grow it. I don't think it's commercially available as a fruit, but you can certainly grow it. And a lot of people will plant Anna. A lot of people will plant Granny Smith. These are what you're looking for in the South are relatively low chill apples. That is to say, ones that do not need as much cold as other as you would need, as you could get in Ohio or as you would need in Kentucky. So it's a different climate, but we're able to do that. We also grow crab apples, though. I don't know if you've ever had crab apple jelly, but it's a really delicious. It's not going to get me off Mayhaws, but it is a delicious jelly and one that the trees are a little easier to grow. So that might be why people grow so many of them. This is a good one. I have a 60-year-old camellia rooted and given to me by my grandmother when I moved to my new home. My cousin, from the same grandmother, has a beautiful new home and I have a 3-foot sprout under the main one. Can I take it out in January without damage? Yes. If it was a rooted camellia and rooted, not grafted, which is what it sounds like, this should be just fine. Dig it up, pot it up. I wouldn't transplant it directly. I would pot it up for maybe a month and then transplant it. Okay? What a great thing, though. I've told the story of believing that this is what children do. I went all over the state of Mississippi to my mother's family's houses. They lived everywhere. Cleveland and Hattiesburg and Natchez and, everywhere, Gulf Coast. And I thought that they all just loved me because I felt so comfortable there. And they did, of course. I was my mama's child and they loved her, so they loved me. But after a while, I came to understand that it was because all of those plants were the same. When we took pictures at one house and we took pictures at another house, we would have the same big pink phlox and the same bright red rose and the same althea that was purple flowered because they shared their plants. And so I love that you're sharing your grandmother's plant with your cousin, and that's going to make another connection that was not there before. So that's delightful. That's really, really wonderful. Fun, fun, fun. Oh, yeah, this is our writer from up by the Homachita Forest. How beautiful. How wonderful. She has an althea, too. That's cool. Love all that.
Great Grateful Dead song, too.
Yes, there is that. Althea. And, althea is a name that is not as popular as it once was, but it was not unusual when Jerry Garcia and them were coming up. He's a little older than me, so when they were coming up, there were a lot of people named Althea and Claudia and all kinds of things with an A on the end that you don't hear so much anymore. Really nifty names. Fun stuff. Somebody asks me, what is candy tuft? Candy tuft is a plant that you probably have not seen, but you would like. If you like the flowers on Sweet Alyssum, the little white flower that's a composite of a whole bunch of little flowers, you will like candy tuft, but it's going to be a taller stem and a stiffer one. It's a real good cut flower. It's a good plant, I believe. In my experience, it's a really good one to plant. For example, if you have a daffodil bed and you have just fed them because they're starting to come up now, well, when you produce the candy tuft seedlings or the calendula seedlings, you can transplant them into that space, and they will turn right around and use the same fertilizer that's been in there for the daffodils and whatever else you put in there. But they're easy. They get along with other plants really easily in that kind of bed situation. Let's see, can I root the althea to give to him? Yes, you can root the althea, but it's going to be better when the althea's stems are a little bit softer. Right now, if you went to push on that, you would break it because it's stiff. It's wintertime. So I would suggest when the new growth comes out, keep an eye on it, and when it bends, but not too easily, that's going to be the easiest to root. There may be some in the ground underneath the althea that you can dig up. That happens too. And if you end up with a really big branch, you can sometimes do an air layer, but usually altheas are going to root better from about a 6-inch cutting taken from new growth that is not brand new. When new growth shoots out on a shrub like that or a tree, it's soft, it's green, it's brand new, it's succulent, it's ready for putting on leaves and starting to grow. A few weeks later, it becomes what we call semi-soft or semi-hard, depending on who you ask, and those are where the rooting opportunities lie. So later on, when it gets to be too crisp, it snaps too easily, then you don't want to do that. It's going to be much harder to root that. If you needed to, and it was fall, and you needed to propagate something like an althea or a spirea or a hydrangea or something else that has lots and lots of branches, you can do winter rooting. You can do where you just take those stems, literally bundle them up, and put them into wet sand outside. But that's a different process altogether. And since you're only trying to root a couple of these, I would wait till later in the spring for that althea. I think you'll be glad you did. I'm going to make one more word here about seed starting, because I know y'all are tired of hearing me say this. It makes a difference what kind of soil you start the seeds in. And you can find seed starting soil so many places. You'll find it at big box stores. You'll find it at garden centers. Sometimes you'll even find it in boutique places where they only sell fancy plants because they want you to sow some of the seeds that they're going to produce from your tropicals. But if you will worry about that and handle it properly, you're going to have better success. If you're recycling cell packs, for example, or little containers to start your seeds in, wash them really well. Double wash them, use a bleach solution so that they are absolutely clean. Then put your soil in, water it real thoroughly, and then proceed to plant after that. You don't want to plant in dry soil and try to water it. You'll not only, you may wash the soil right out of the box, out of the pot, and with the seeds with it, or you may drown the seeds. So go ahead and get that soil nice and moist. Not wet, but just moist, okay? We talk all the time. Somebody sent me a note last week and said, guess what was in my Christmas stocking? A heating mat. And I thought, I made it. I got somebody to do that. That's wonderful. But if you will put that heating mat, unless you're growing alpine seeds, okay, most seeds will come better if they're produced with a soil temperature that's warmer than the air temperature around them. And that's why we use a soil mat, a heating mat under our soil pots. It's one of those things, just don't think twice. Just get yourself one. You'll be glad you did. You'll be real glad you did. Coming in next week, this is going to be such a crazy busy month. Mark Patrick will be in next week. And then on
No, not him.
The very one.
I love Mark.
Have you, I don't want to say that he knows what season it is, but it's not quite Mardi Gras yet, and he's already decorated.
He's ready to go.
So, coming up at the end of the month, though, on the 24th, we'll be talking to Janet from the Gulf Coast Orchid Society again. I'm happy to say they're having their show in Goche again at the very end of the month on the 31st. I'm trying to get to that. And Ken Hackman will be here on the 31st, and he's going to be talking about birds, of course, but also this really cool event that's coming up in Madison this spring. So we'll cover all of that here this particular month, because January is just the beginning. We're going to roll on out and have lots and lots and lots to do. Somebody sent me a note about nasturtiums and said they don't taste as good as capers. Well, that may be. I'm not going to disagree with you. I thought that was funny, though. That I appreciate you taking the time to send me the note. But it's also true that for example, many of us have never successfully grown tarragon. I grew one once for a minute, but it didn't become part of my herb garden. But I can grow tagetes, I can grow Mexican marigold, and the leaves from that have a very distinct tarragon taste. So it is something that you can use. Oh, beautiful camellia. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. So pretty. I'm going to tell you one thing, though. When the flowers fall off of a camellia, they look so pretty lying on the ground. They make like a skirt around the plant. Don't leave them there. There's a disease that basically comes from petals developing fungus from laying in damp ground like that can get into the tree, the camellia bush itself, and give it problems. So give yourself the opportunity to break those up. Enjoy them, take pictures, have fun with it, and then go ahead and get rid of them. It's important to do that. Yellow jasmine. See, and I think that verbena, that might be purple homestead that's blooming. I wouldn't be surprised. There's a lot of things that just can't help it. They got a flower bud. They got to pop it out there. Going to talk about a couple of more things this morning. I'm so happy for your texts and all your all your New Year's wishes, now that it's New Year's. Today's chocolate-covered cherry day. Anybody want some lunch? Stick around. We hope you're having as good a time as we are. We appreciate you being here with us today. Lance has always got something to surprise me. I promised you satsumas, and I did not deliver, and here's why. Here's a new term, alternate bearing. Yep, I knew they were. I just didn't think about it. Satsumas, like pecans, tend to have a big crop this year and a small crop the next. And that's normal for them. It is a thing that they try to overcome with breeding and with cultivation and with how to take care of them. But in this particular year, the crop was very small because if you go backwards, we had a really serious freeze issue. Then when they recovered from that, there was a bountiful crop last year. So this year, the trees really do have to rest some. Sometimes we hear from people with pecans that last year the pecans were all over the floor, all over the ground, and now there's not any. So the question is always, why is that? And the term is alternate bearing. It's a natural phenomenon. It is one that they try to work on to make it less apparent, but it does make a great deal of sense that that's how it is. Okay, thank you, Ron. We'll see what we can do about that. Paula says that the best part is that she gets to take down the decorations and get her space back. Now, that's not a very good attitude. Come on now. I have a feeling Paula has lots of decorations, though. So she may have a point. She may have a point. Talking about planting those fruit trees, sometimes I had said to you that it depends on what size the tree is. For example, in a 2-gallon pot, it's going to be 3 to 5 years before it can be expected to make plums or apples or pears, that kind of stuff. If you've got a bare root tree, and I know some people will buy them that way because you can perhaps get a preferred variety, or maybe it's a less expensive choice, there are a couple of things that you need to be aware of. It may add time to that space before you get fruit, but most important is what you have to do at the beginning. You've got to soak that bare root overnight, and if it has any dead roots on it, you won't honestly be able to tell, so don't start chopping on it. If you want to cut the tips, though, off of the roots, that will tell you if they're alive. Oftentimes they'll be nice and bright inside that skin, and that's what you're trying to do, is to hydrate those roots. So don't cut them off, but trim them if necessary. Soak it overnight and give yourself, some warm water, maybe a little fertilizer in there, maybe a little, composted manures or something that you got. You might have some worm castings to toss in there, just something to help build them up just a little bit before you get them out into the ground. And don't forget, brand new fruit trees are just like the older fruit trees. You're going to need to spray them with horticultural oil in the wintertime. So right after you plant or right after you prune, either of those things, depending on whether it's a brand new plant or an older plant, do that for yourself. And give yourself the opportunity to get them off on the right foot. It's really important. Now, yes, sometimes you will get a bare root. You'll order a bare root from somewhere, and it comes in and it just looks dead. Don't give up on it. But if it does not rehydrate, you certainly have a concern to report to that particular entity and get another one. I was right. Paula says every corner and countertop has Christmas in it. Well, that makes a lovely collection, and that's we get to look forward to next year in November. Talking about spreading your seeds a little bit more, trying to get these things to come up a little more quickly. The heating pad will do that underneath there because that warm soil will make a difference. The right amount of light is going to make a huge difference, not only in the way they sprout, but in the way they grow. Keeping things damp but not super wet is also real important. We're trying to maintain a real moderate environment. You say, but out in nature, it's not going to have that moderate of an environment. Why do we have to be so careful? Because we're trying for a higher percentage of germination. If your zinnia is fling 1,000 seeds out into the open space, maybe half of them will come up. You might get 50%, maybe not. Might get 10%, depending on where they land or how they're doing. But if we start them ourselves with a concentrated effort, we can get pretty close to 80, 90%, sometimes even a little higher than that in terms of the return on our seeds. So it's also important to remember, if you're planting big seeds, something like the nasturtium or something, any of the seeds that are, bigger around than the end of your finger, you probably do want to soak them or nick them. When we get to okra, we always talk about this. It's important to remember that will speed them along, because the first step in seed germination is for the seed and the coat that's around it to take up water. That's how they get the energy to go ahead and sprout. So you need to make sure that you're getting that. And it also gives you the opportunity to look at another end of that spectrum. You're going to take those big seeds. You might take that same metal nail file and rub on them a little bit. You might make a little nick in one corner to help the water get in a little more quickly. But if you got very, very fine seeds, like that night blooming cereus or some impatiens or something like that, you're going to want to mix them instead with a little bit of sand. You may even put them into a salt shaker or pepper shaker and sow them that way, so that you don't end up with clumps of seed too close to each other to then later on thin out. So it's just some ideas for you that might help out and might make it a little bit different for you. I'm always in favor of having in the seed room, I'd like you to have an air thermometer there too, just so you know what's going on. You may or may not want day and night time, because if you're in your house, you pretty much know, but it is good to know really what you've got right there around those plants that you're trying to sprout. I tell you what, if I was a turtle named Toodles, I would feel like I had a really good life. Paula's turtle is just beautiful. He's appreciating the last view of the Christmas decorations before for his village has to go back in the box. I wonder, now does it become rocks and palm trees for him after that? I bet it does. I'll bet it does. We go to springtime in a heartbeat. Why not? Today is this is chocolate covered cherry day. Yes, there are dark chocolate covered cherries. I highly recommend them. I can't say the milk chocolate ones aren't good, but for those of us who are very adaptive to dark chocolate, that's a good choice. This is also, and I want to leave you today with this one. It's J.R.R. Tolkien Day.
Oh, nice.
He was born on this day in late 1800 something or another. Lived till the 1970s. You might, in fact, be his reincarnation. I don't know, Lance.
That'd be nice.
But he was a deeply devout Catholic person, and all of these things that he wrote really have other layers to them, and yet they're just fantasy. Okay. People who spend a whole lot of time trying to go, let me just say this, too many movies. Could have made 2, that would have been plenty. But anyway, I go back to The Hobbit. All right, The Hobbit's where I started. I read The Hobbit. I've read The Hobbit probably 3 times in my life. It's a great story. I don't really need the rest. I love it. It's good. I've seen all of it. It's a good story. But if you're looking for the elements of fantasy and wonder and search and quest and all of those classic tropes, you're going to find that in The Hobbit. And I don't know how people read nowadays, but it's traditionally thought of as a fourth grade reader's ability. So if your kids are at that level, I suggest that either you start reading it out loud to them or you give it to them, because it's a great book. We don't think about we think about movies, we think about reading, but we don't always put them together. So I say, get a copy of The Hobbit. You'll be glad you did. You might even like me a little bit better. Who knows? We'll be back next week.
Mississippi Media.